Scene feels pretty familiar to a lot of you out there, right? That feeling of being stuck, just staring out the window, dreaming of building something that's 100% yours. It's an incredible dream, but it can also be a really scary one.
And that kind of brings us to the central conflict here. On one side, you've got the dream, this amazing, fulfilling venture. But on the other, there's the cold, hard reality. Without a rock-solid plan, quitting your job can be, well, a totally destructive risk. So, how do we bridge that massive gap? Well, that's exactly what we're here to do today. We're going to walk through an essential checklist that helps transform that blind leap of faith into a smart, strategic, calculated move. So here's our game plan. We'll start by setting the stage for a smart transition. Then we'll dive deep into the financial foundation you absolutely need. After that, we'll check in on whether you're personally ready for the challenge, and then run a final reality check on the business itself. And at the end, we'll put it all together to help you make that huge decision. All right, first things first, the dual dream. This is all about laying the groundwork for a really strategic move, not an impulsive one. Okay, let's talk about money. Your financial foundation is, without a doubt, the bedrock of everything. Seriously, without it, even the best idea in the world can just crumble under pressure. So let's get into the 3 absolute non-negotiables you need to have in place. So criterion number 1 is beautifully simple. Start small. A huge mistake people make is thinking they need this massive, splashy launch. But think of it this way. You wouldn't build an entire farm before you've even proven you can raise a single chicken, right? You've got to test your idea with a tiny investment first. And this just lays out that path perfectly. Can you sell 1 thing? Great. Now can you do it again and sell 3? Awesome. Now let's see you sell 10. See how that works? Your experience and your profits grow together, hand in hand, which lowers your risk with every single step. Okay, let's talk about the second financial pillar. When is your side hustle income actually enough to quit your job? Hint, it's not just when it covers your bills. There's a golden rule for this.
Now, this is super important. We call it the 2x rule. Basically, your project's monthly income should be double what your family needs for essential expenses. Why double? Because your business income is not a steady paycheck. It's going to go up and down. That extra money, that's your cushion. That's your buffer against those slow months and all the unexpected costs that will pop up. So what happens if things get really rough right at the beginning? Well, that's where criterion number 3 comes in, the emergency fund. And you got to stop thinking of this as just personal savings. It's a professional tool. It's your safety parachute. It's what gives you the peace of mind to focus on building, not just on surviving. And the target here is crystal clear. You need enough cash stashed away to cover all your living expenses for 6 to 12 months. No exceptions. This fund buys you the single most valuable thing an entrepreneur has, time. Time to figure things out, time to build, time to succeed without feeling desperate. All right, so once the financial pillars are in place, we need to shift gears. Let's move away from the money and focus on the person who's going to make this all happen, which is you. Are you actually ready for this? You know, it's a question I hear all the time. You've built something incredible. You know people are going to love it, so that should be enough to succeed, right? Well, unfortunately, the answer is a big, resounding no. A great product? That's just the ticket to the game. To actually win, you have to be more than a creator. You have to become a manager. And that means learning how to market your stuff, how to run your operations efficiently, and yeah, even how to schedule your own work strategically. Success isn't about luck, it's about skill. This brings us to our 5th criterion, and honestly, it might be the most important one of all. Forget the spreadsheets and business plans for a second. What's the single most important psychological trait you need? It's determination and willpower. Let's just be real for a minute. The path ahead is going to be tough. You are going to face fierce competition. Your sales will go up and down. You will hit roadblocks that feel absolutely impossible to get around. So the real question is, are you mentally prepared to stare those challenges in the face and just keep pushing when almost anyone else would quit? Okay, you've checked your finances, you've checked yourself. Now it's time for the final reality check. These last 2 points are all about stress testing your business idea out in the real world before you take that final leap. So your side hustle had a fantastic month. Time to quit the day job? Not so fast. Criterion 6 is all about the stability test. See, anyone can have one good month. You need to prove you can perform consistently over time, We're talking 3 to 6 months, ideally, to show that your business is a real, sustainable source of income and not just a fluke. And finally, we've arrived at criterion number 7. Look, if you want to build something that lasts, you can't just walk into it blindly. You have to proactively analyze your risks and really understand your competition. This isn't about being pessimistic. It's about being strategic.
I love this analogy. Think of your business as a fortress that you're building. Well, to protect that fortress, you have to know who your enemies are, the market risks, your competitors, all those potential challenges. Knowing them is the absolute first step to defending against them.
And there we have it. We've journeyed from this kind of vague, risky dream all the way to a clear, actionable checklist. So let's put all these pieces together one last time.
Here it is, the whole shebang, your 7-point readiness checklist. Number 1, start small. 2, secure that income that's double your needs. 3, build that 6 to 12-month emergency fund. 4, learn to be a manager. 5, have that unbreakable willpower. 6, prove your stability over several months. And 7, analyze your risks.
This is it, the ultimate question. Looking at this list, honestly, how do you stack up? Now, this checklist isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to empower you to make a really smart, confident decision.
Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Proper planning doesn't get rid of risk, but it transforms it. It turns a wild gamble into a calculated leap. And that, right there, is what turns dreams into success stories.
And get into the story. Let's start with the central puzzle. Think about this for a second. How do you trap something like wisdom inside a physical object, like a plain old jar? It sounds totally impossible, right? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is kind of brilliant. All right, so our story kicks off with a powerful king, a very human mistake, and a decision made in a moment of anger that, well, it changes everything. So on one side, you've got the young king. He came to power when he was just 25, and he's impulsive, quick to anger. And on the other side, you have his lifelong teacher, the wise advisor, a guy who is the complete opposite. He's patient, calm, and always thoughtful. This contrast, right here, is what drives the whole story.
And it doesn't take long for that conflict to bubble up. A huge crisis hits the kingdom. See, there was a bad climate forecast, the crops failed, and now there's not enough food. People are starting to panic, and the young king needs someone to blame.
So in a moment of just pure, uncontrolled anger, the king turns on the one person who's always guided him. He blames the wise advisor for the bad forecast and banishes him right then and there. It's a total gut reaction, fueled by emotion, not a shred of logic.
But here's where you really see the advisor's wisdom shine. Does he argue? Does he protest his innocence? Nope. He just accepts this completely unfair punishment with this quiet dignity, moves to a village far away, and starts a new life as a simple farmer.
Now, the king's rash decision, of course, has consequences. And it sets the stage for a really brilliant, and honestly, kind of weird, test. The Jar of Wisdom.
Back at the palace, it doesn't take long for reality to hit the king, hard. Without his advisor, he's lost. Big decisions are piling up and he's struggling. He starts to realize his huge mistake wasn't some act of justice. It was just a product of his own bad temper.
But how do you find one specific person in a giant kingdom without having to admit you were completely wrong? The king comes up with this incredibly clever test, a royal decree sent to every single village, one that's designed so that only one person could possibly figure it out. And here's the decree. Messengers show up with empty jars in this impossible demand. Fill this jar with wisdom, the king orders, and if you can't, then you have to fill it with jewels. I mean, can you imagine? This created waves of fear all across the land. How on earth do you put wisdom in a jar?
And this brings us to the climax of the story, where a simple pumpkin holds the key to solving the king's impossible puzzle.
The villagers, totally terrified of this choice, bring the jar to the one wise man they know and trust, our exiled advisor, who's just living his life as a farmer. So, how does he solve a riddle like this? See, the advisor doesn't panic or try to force some clever answer. He uses true wisdom. First, he finds a pumpkin vine with a tiny little bud on it. Second, he carefully places that little bud inside the empty jar, making sure it stays attached to the vine. And third, he just waits. He tends to the plant, gives it sun and water, and lets nature do its thing.
And over time, that tiny bud grows and grows until it's a huge pumpkin that has completely filled the inside of the jar. It's so big now that you can't get it out without breaking the jar. The solution wasn't forced, it was nurtured. The jar is now literally filled with the wisdom of patience, of growth, and of time.
When the jar gets back to the palace, the king doesn't need any explanation. He takes one look at that pumpkin, trapped perfectly inside the jar, and he smiles. He knows. He knows that only his wise, patient advisor could have come up with such a beautiful, elegant solution.
The king immediately goes to find his old teacher to apologize, and this reunion really gets to the core lesson of the entire story. A powerful reminder about how we should probably approach our own difficult problems.
So, what can we really take away from this? Well, first, pretty obvious, making decisions when you're angry almost always leads to regret. Our emotions just cloud our judgment. Second, creative solutions come from a calm mind. The advisor didn't panic, he just observed. And finally, and this might be the most important one, true wisdom takes time. Some answers can't be rushed, they just have to be allowed to grow.
And that leaves us with one final thought. We all face problems that feel impossible, like an empty jar we're supposed to fill with wisdom. So the question to ask yourself is this: what's the pumpkin in your life? What problem or goal or relationship doesn't actually need a faster solution, but maybe just a little more patience and a little more time to grow?